G'day, folks. Peter here. Welcome back to Mondays Down Under on the Talking Pools podcast, where I am joined by Lee, who I know is in Brisbane because she's been commenting about how bad the traffic is, and Shane over in Auckland. How you
He's
guys doing?
also been commenting about how bad the traffic is.
Yeah, but see,
And
Perth has
Peter in Perth,
the worst
who
intersection ever. 5 lanes, all trying to merge across each other as you pass between the CBD, Central Business District of the city, and Parliament House. It is mayhem. So I try to avoid that one. But you're doing well
Yes,
apart from traffic.
it's good when you can avoid things like that, when you get to know your local community and you know which ways to go. But I tell you what, GPS was not my friend today. It kept trying to take me shortcuts that really weren't that short. So yes, I am in lovely sunny Brisbane again, and it is actually been lovely and sunny. A bit on the cold side still for Brisbane. I'm expecting something warmer here. But no, traffic and me just don't mix because I'm a country kid at heart. And like, let's face it, my hometown only has 2 traffic lights, and one of those is pedestrian. So, yeah.
Well, you can take the girl
I've
out of
lived
the
in
country,
towns
but
like
you
that.
can't take the country out of the girl.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
When I first come to New Zealand, I went to an area called the Bay of Islands. There's a little, they call it a township. You know, it's not even a town, it's a township, even smaller. Yep. There were no traffic lights there at all. I haven't been up there for a few years. I'm pretty sure there's still 0 traffic lights up there. That's how small it is, but very, very cute, cozy little township. So I know what it's like living in these small areas, these little pockets, Lee, where everybody knows everybody's business. You know, everybody's.
Yeah. Well, we only just got our first roundabout about 5 years ago, 4 years ago now. So we didn't have a roundabout until then. But yeah, 4-way traffic lights and 1 set of pedestrian crossing lights. And that's it for our lovely little seaside town. And look, it's not that little, but it's definitely not a city.
What
so
sort of population are we talking?
I think it's at about our local area, slightly extended local area is about 15,000. And it swells to about 50 or 60,000 at Christmas and Easter when peak holiday times are on, because we're a beautiful little seaside town and with some stunning coastline. So anybody out there, the Sapphire Coast, South Coast, New South Wales, beautiful location.
The reason I ask about population, about 4 hours south of us here, there's a town called Albany, and it's got a population somewhere around 40, 50,000 people. And my wife's from there, so I'm down there quite a lot. But they do not have traffic lights. Anytime somebody suggests a traffic light is installed anywhere in Albany, there is public outcry. 1,000,001 roundabouts.
Up, everybody's signing.
Oh, somebody proposes a traffic light. It's mayhem down there. You'd think they'd suggest I don't know, sacrifice babies on the altar or something. I've never seen anything like that before or since.
Oh, well. No, well, definitely the new set of traffic lights definitely made an improvement of flow. But I do actually have to admit, for a small town, we do actually have a McDonald's. Isn't that terrible?
I think every town does. Anyway, let's talk about pool startups.
I was going to say that's got nothing about pools, but anyway.
But we do like a good chat.
Buffer Zone Systems are the pool and spa industry specialists with a complete range of software for pool shops, service companies and commercial aquatic facilities. With more features and integrations than any other pool industry software, you really need to reach out for a one-on-one demonstration. Contact Buffer Zone today.
Pool startups.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. as I mentioned to the two of you just on our chats. It's quite interesting. I've noticed over here as well that there's quite a lot of builders which build concrete pools, plaster pools, and resurfacing companies as well, which they don't do their own startups. I'm not sure why they don't do it. I'm sure there is a reason, but they tend to ask, the pool pros out there if they do startups and would they be willing to actually do the startups for them. So when I was chatting to them, for me, it kind of swings both ways. One, yes, it's good to take on extra work. Hopefully you'll get a new client out of it as well. In that sense, you're working with a brand new pool. But in another sense, and this goes back to when I first started in the industry, the company that I was working for, they did startups. They did what I now know as a hot startup. Some people may say, it's good. Some people may say it's bad. That's,
What's a hot startup?
Just using hydrochloric acid, just to lower it. And this particular company didn't add any calcium at the beginning. So there were many reasons. Now I know the way that they were doing their startups was not a very good process in order to do it. But the other point that puts me off is if there is an issue with the surface, if we're talking about plaster pools, 6 months, 12 months down the line, where is that finger going to be pointed? Who's liable for this? Is it the pool builder? Is it the startup company? So it's not something we want to take on at this stage. Startups on plaster pools, as Peter was mentioning, you talk about it a little bit more in a minute. It's a little bit different for fiberglass and vinyl swimming pools, but just wanted your guys' opinions on this, what it's like on the east and west coast of Australia.
I can understand your caution. Absolutely. No one ever wants to take on that responsibility of somebody else's workmanship. So if there's something wrong with the plaster coating or the render or whatever they've put on that surface, then obviously as the service technician, you want to make sure that you're doing with it everything within your responsibility levels to do the right thing, to adhere to the manufacturers or the the surface render supply companies' warranty requirements. And that's probably my first thing, is if you're going to take on these startups, then you need to have in writing what the actual render is that's being put on the pool, and so that you can confirm with the manufacturer what their startup procedures are and that you're following them to the letter. And then you want to make sure that you're documenting your procedures so that you're covering your ass in every particular way you can. I certainly understand why builders and renderers don't do their startups, and I think it's one, they don't have a lot of them don't have the knowledge or the skill to do it, especially with new handovers, complete handovers, but also they don't stock the chemicals. It's not like us. We use these chemicals on a day-to-day basis. What are they going to do? Go out and buy these chemicals and then just hold on to them for when they've finished that render? Now, yeah, look, maybe they're doing one of them a week and it might be worth them doing that. I don't know whether it's worth the hassle of them doing it. Obviously, as a business for us, it gives us a great opportunity, as you mentioned, gets us in the backyard of a pool that we mightn't have had done any work for previously, and potentially a brand new customer. But yeah, it's a hard one, and I understand your caution.
There's another big couple of things, and I've said before, fiberglass is predominant here. Vastly predominant. I've had a few fiberglass builders. I've had some of the concrete builders as well ask me to come on board and do their startups. But two things. First of all, if it's concrete and it needs a lot of scrubbing, scrubbing every day for however long, depending on the manufacturer's specs. A, do we have the time to just send someone out there and just scrub a pool day after day after day? B, and I've seen this happen plenty, with predominantly fiberglass pools, the installer, so I'll backtrack a touch. In our market, the customer buys directly from the pool manufacturer in the metro area. Country areas, there are agents. I understand that's more how it works on the East Coast as well. So the agent will buy the shells, the stock from the manufacturer, but it goes in and the installer will often put the pool in, run the pipes, install the equipment. I have seen such absolute train wrecks of equipment installations. Now, if I've got to send someone out there for however long it is, and you can never assume how long it's going to take. You can't say, this is a half-hour job, this is a 2-hour job. There's too much can happen. But if I've then got to lose, an hour or two replumbing a train wreck of this pipe work and equipment, then who's going to pay for it?
Mm.
That's my big hesitation there, because if I commission a pool, I want to make sure it's working right and working properly. I was out at one a few months ago. It wasn't a new handover, but fairly recent. And the order of equipment was pump, chlorinator cell, filter, heater.
Oh boy. Someone didn't go to pool school.
Somebody needs a sharp visit from the slap fairy.
Someone doesn't know how to read a manual, like an instruction book. Jesus.
First time in a very long time, other than a DIY job, a homeowner thinking they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
First time I've seen a builder, though, put in pump, then salt cell, then filter, then heater.
Crazy.
What were they thinking? Were they even thinking? Probably not. Now, how could I leave that system and say, yes, it's commissioned properly without correcting the pipe work? The builder's not going to like me saying in front of the customer, look, I need to redo this because it's wrong. And they're not going to want to pay me for it. So I have it working for free.
Do I understand that in Western Australia there is no such thing as a pool builder's license?
Correct.
That is ridiculous.
The big concern
Someone told me that last week.
Yeah. The big concern I've got with that is structurally, because potentially, and I've met people who have done this, they've gone and worked for a pool builder for a while. They figure, this is a good way to make money. Go buy themselves a beat up old ute and a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow, and they start making pools. Now, the problem is a lot of the time, because of diminishing block sizes, land sizes, the wall of the pool will often form the foundation of the house. You get the structure wrong in that, and that wall fails, that house is coming down. I would love to know why there's no mandatory training, certification, licensing, whatever you want to call it, some legislation to make sure, yes, these people know what they're doing. Ironically, though, a painter needs a license.
Yeah.
So you need a license to paint a house, but not to build the structure that is a pool shell.
That's just crazy. I was absolutely flabbergasted when I heard that through the week. I surely thought they were wrong, but
it's quite surprising for the nanny state, actually.
I know, they missed that one. They let that one through. That and registration or certification of pool techs, mobile technicians or pool shop people. They're two areas where, unfortunately, I think it's going to take a catastrophic tragedy before anyone takes note of it.
I know Sparza are working quite hard on that over there, so hopefully they'll be able to make some inroads. But so I think we're talking about slightly two different things here. We're talking about potentially your handovers or your startups, let's say your chemical startups, where we're actually taking on the responsibility of adding the first lot of chemicals to a pool that's had a new render or a new paint surface or a resurfacing of some kind, or a new surfacing for a new pool of some kind, and the responsibility that comes with that. And then also we're talking about potentially the handovers for all pools, whether that be like and I'm talking here general fiberglass, you more common ones in Australia as we see more fiberglass pools going in, where a handover chemically is much simpler, I would imagine. Like I know, but it's also then handing over to the client and giving them full operations and instructions with their equipment and how to maintain the pool. And look, I think that's a great idea when a pool builder does bring in a service technician to do that handover, that full experience handover here, not just talking about chemicals, because I think we understand as service technicians, we understand the maintenance and the operations of pools probably better than the pool builders do. And I'm sorry, pool builders out there, please don't be offended by that. But we're dealing with the day-to-day maintenance of pools every day, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. And so we've got a great deal of experience to draw on that we can share a snippet of that with the client when we do that handover. So I think they get a more thorough handover when it's done by a pool service technician than by a pool builder. So I think that's a great thing if a pool builder is prepared to do that. We were very lucky to have a local pool builder in our area that was only actually interested in putting the shells in the ground. And when it came to the equipment and the plumbing, he left that up to us, which was great because one, a fantastic lot of sale of equipment. Yeah. We could two, sit down with that client and actually have a real one-on-one conversation with them about, okay, well, what do you expect from this pool? What sort of water quality do you want? Do you have any skin irritations or anything like that we need to look for, whether that be a mineral pool or a naked pool or different situations like that? Also, filtration. Do we have the opportunity to use a sand filter or media filter? Because in New South Wales, we have to put that into the sewer. So is sewer access an issue? Or do you want to go through the maintenance of a cartridge filter and cleaning that out regularly? So you can have all those conversations with the client, and obviously automation and all of that comes into play too.
Hang on. You said you have to backwash a media filter into the sewer.
Yes.
Here, that's illegal.
Yeah, so different states, different rules.
It has to be disposed of on the property.
Yeah, so in Victoria, it's allowed to go, in areas of Victoria, I understand it can go to the stormwater. In our area in New South Wales, and I think for the majority of New South Wales, it has to go into the sewer. So
here, very strict. The exception being commercial aquatic facilities. They have to apply to the Water Corporation for a license because pool wastewater is counted as industrial waste here.
Right.
Now, if you work on a flotation tank, which has got 3 gazillion parts per million of magnesium salts, there they often have to have a method of draining it into a waste disposal truck. So something like an intermediary bulk container on the back gets dumped in because it's just too much concentration for the.
Well, and I do know at one point in areas of Victoria where saltwater pools had to have cartridge filters on them because they didn't want the water going into the sewer or the stormwater because of the salinity. So yeah, every area is a little bit different.
How many of those do you reckon have been retrofitted with salt systems?
Yes. Oh, look, and even I know people who have actually put in a cartridge filter to appease the council and then ripped it out and put in a sand filter and ran the waste to somewhere they're not supposed to. So it does happen, unfortunately. But yeah. So getting back to startups, every surface has a different startup requirement. So it's important as service technicians that we're all over what each surface requires, and maybe that might mean individually going to the supplier of that surface supplier and finding out whether that has to sit with water in it. Some of them I think it's some paints and some renders have to sit with water in it for a few weeks or even up to 7 days or more without any chemicals in it. Some need to wait 5 weeks before they put salt in it. Some have high lime in their surfaces or in the material that they use. So you end up with a very high pH level, and you've constantly got to battle that for the first few weeks. So they're all very different. So depending on the render or the surface that's actually been installed on the pool, and this even goes with fiberglass too, as we've had this conversation before. Fiberglass manufacturers, some of them have very different water parameters that you need to keep those levels within. So please, whatever you're doing as a service technician, you want to do the right things, and you definitely don't want to get yourself in trouble. Make sure that you reach out to the supplier or the manufacturer of the surface material that's been used and find out for yourself. Don't take anybody else's word for it. It's going to be your neck on the line if you're actually doing that handover, if you're doing that chemicalization, whether it be the first one or on an ongoing basis. You don't want anything to come back and bite you in the butt. So make sure that you reach out to the suppliers yourself, familiarize yourself with their requirements, and make sure that you're adhering to them.
Let me throw a curveball.
Sure.
When you go in, sort out a pool after the landscapers have been in. I've mentioned before, very popular thing is aggregate concrete. So aggregate being concrete, if that's not the term you use in your part of the world, it's concrete with ornamental stones protruding from the surface. Sometimes that, or quite often that's honed, meaning they get a big grinder, grind it down so it's a lot smoother underfoot, and you end up with a copious amount of crap in the pool from it. Now, there's a few of those. We do quite a lot of those. A lot of the pool service companies in Perth will not do them because it's hard on your equipment. It takes a long time sometimes. It can be a pig of a job. I only ever quote, this is my hourly rate plus chemicals. And that hourly rate includes if we have to start overhauling pumps to pull stones out of the impeller and stuff like that, because that happens a lot. But with those, I've got a couple on at the moment. One of them is, in fact, the two really good ones are both fiberglass. Some of the messiest jobs I've seen. And you basically, they're acid washing the waterline with sometimes neat hydrochloric acid and a scrubbing brush. We use the bamboo fiber bristle scrubbing brushes. And it can take a fair while. And sometimes the only option is really to acid wash. One of them I've got at the moment, I've never seen so much cement stuck hard to the floor of the pool. It does not brush up. So out comes the oxalic acid, and that's lifting it. But you've got to be careful that you don't absolutely nuke this pool with oxalic in case there's any chance of damage. So with those, again, you've got to look at what are the manufacturer requirements. And I'll regularly ring manufacturers and say, look, how do we go doing an acid wash? How do we go do an acid bath on the particular surface that you use? And I mean, I haven't built a fiberglass pool for 5.5 years now. So you do see new surface finishes coming in that you haven't seen before. You've got to constantly, as with everything in this trade, you've got to constantly keep ahead of changes in technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And sticking your head in the sand and not asking the right questions and not getting the information, you are risking your own neck. You're risking people coming back at you and accusing you of things you may or may not have done, whether that be knowingly or unknowingly. So it's up to you to make sure that you educate yourself and your team and handle these situations correctly. You can obviously, you could probably put a disclaimer on your quote or something like that and say that you can't be responsible for the actual render quality of the surface because you didn't do that work, and that you'll adhere to the manufacturer's instructions. Maybe that's worth putting on it as a bit of a disclaimer, but certainly having concrete left over on the render. I've seen some atrocious render jobs myself over the years with the quartz on surfaces where you can actually see the trowel lines, and
Yep.
they are razor sharp underfoot. And these poor people are expected by the pool builder just to put up with it. So, yeah, to me, that's just inexcusable, and that's obviously the quality of their finish. So it's not good enough.
Yeah, but I think I mentioned before, I'm very selective about which builders I'll do work for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a couple of them who are renowned throughout the pool service industry for just ripping people off. I know one guy who was doing these regular servicing and cleaning on display pools for one of the pool builders, and this 10 odd pools or whatever, and the amount they wanted to pay him to clean these 10 pools is what I charge for doing 2. And I just thought, I said to him, why do you do this? He said, oh, it's regular work. I said, yeah, it's regular work that you're losing money on. You don't want that.
No.
So
No.
yeah, that's be very careful. As with any customer, be selective about
Yeah.
which customers you take on.
Yeah. And look, like there's surfaces like paint and vinyl that are really, they're soft. They're soft surfaces, or what I call soft surface anyway, and can be very reactive to chemicals and treatment. And so you really need to know what the limitations are of those products. It's not always easy to adhere to those limitations. Like obviously they're saying you need to keep your chlorine probably between 1 and 2 or 1 and 3. Now, if you need to superchlorinate that pool for whatever reason, green algae infestation or whatever that might be, you need to treat the pool the way you need to treat the pool. So there's always that risk. So, and I have a big problem with manufacturers, and we've again had this conversation about fiberglass pools, but whether it be fiberglass or vinyl or paint or render, it doesn't matter, but your product needs to be fit for purpose.
Yeah.
And yes, we need to superchlorinate a pool from time to time. Hopefully not very often, but the pool needs to be able to withstand that for a short period of time without causing it damage. Obviously, long period of time, you understand that it can't be kept like that, but for a short period of time, it should be doable. And so, yeah, is your product really fit for purpose if it can't withstand that? A fiberglass pool the manufacturer might require it to be between pH be maintained between 7.2 and 7.4, but let's face it, most of the saltwater pools, the pH always sits above 7.4. It's usually at 7.6 or 7.8 or worse yet 8. Yeah, we don't want the pools to be kept at that, but that's reality. And so if a manufacturer is asking for that pool to be tested and balanced once a month, then in between those once a month tests, they have to expect that pool pH is going to rise to get to a point where it needs treating. It'll be treated and then brought back. It's not going to be maintained at that 7.2 to 7.4 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. So
there'll always be that time, even with the best pH and ORP control systems, there'll always be that time when the acid drum runs out, or somebody hasn't misreads it, or they've gone, customer's gone on holiday and locked the place up, and the service tech can't get in there for 2 months. These things do happen. So yeah, it's got to be a bit of pride in your work, proper materials. There's enough cheap rubbishy products in the world out there. We don't need to see that in the pool industry. No. So Shane, the decision is you're not doing those handovers. Run away.
No, I think you mentioned about the disclaimer. I think that's a really good idea. But even for ourselves, it's something that I really don't want to get into at this stage. But if there are other listeners out there, I think adding that disclaimer that you mentioned would be extremely beneficial for everybody.
Yeah. Like obviously a disclaimer is only a disclaimer, whether it's something that can actually be held up in a court of law, but it's about setting expectations and letting people know your limitations and their expectations of you and your expectations of them, and also the expectations of what the pool builders delivered to them. So yeah, and it's interesting because I actually on our travels we dropped in a friend's house, and he knew we were coming, and on his outdoor table he actually had a folder full of quotes that he'd had to get his pool resurfaced, and he asked us to go through them and give him some advice on it. And well, we're actually obviously not resurfacers ourselves, so we couldn't really quote on the price or the actual undertaking of it. It was interesting to see disclaimers and that sort of thing from them, and also though the detail that they went into as far as how thick the coating would be, whether they would give a 12-month warranty or a 5-year warranty, or what their warranty is. So yeah, something worth knowing, because at the moment this friend of ours has rust coming through a Pebble Creek pool, so a cement render pool, and he's got a couple of rust spots that are quite bad. So it's going to be cut out and re-rendered and that sort of thing. So, and the whole pool is being re-rendered. And he said to the guy, well, what sort of guarantee that can you give me that I'm not going to get rust in more spots? And the guy said, well, how long's the pool been in for? And he said, oh, 20 odd years. And he said, well, obviously the spots where you've got the rust and you've had them for a few years are probably the only spots you're going to have rust. And we're going to put another, I think it was 10 or 20 mil of render on top of that. So it's got even more to work its way through. So that was sort of as much as the guarantee as he could give him. So, yeah, but he said, yeah. He said, I can't guarantee it. He said, I can guarantee it won't come back in the same place, but I can't guarantee that it won't come back somewhere else. He said, though, having bared that in mind, yeah, it hasn't come out yet, so it's not likely to. So that was the guarantee he got.
Yeah.
And not a cheap process. I think he was looking at about $15,000 to actually re-render a pool with a concrete render. And that didn't include new coping. That was just the actual render of the shell. Not a very big pool, probably about 7 meters long maybe, and about 3 meters wide. So, or 2.5 meters wide, not a very big pool at all.
Yeah, I get a lot of people saying, oh, who's the cheapest? I said, the cheapest is the guy you don't want to do the job.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
I've seen some terrible rendering jobs. Some of the tiling jobs I've seen have been shocking. Don't even start me on some of the fiberglass resurfaces. But there are others who I see them as proper tradespeople, and they do a top-notch job. It looks beautiful and it lasts. You've really got to be careful. And this goes for us as well. If we recommend somebody to do a job, it comes back on us, if in the customer's opinion, legally, if they don't do a great job. That's why, for example, the person, Mark, is a guy I recommend for re-rendering pools. He does an absolutely top-notch job. Is he the cheapest? Not at all. But it's still a lot cheaper than having to replace the re-rendering after a year because it started to fail.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So yes, if you do those handovers, be cautious. Do your due diligence, do your research, contact the manufacturers of the surface material yourself, and make sure that you're adhering to their requirements to do the best thing, not only by the render of the pool, but by the customer, and make sure that you're covering your butt.
As with all things in life, cover your butt. Nobody needs to see a bare butt.
No one needs to see the plumber's crack.
No. Anyway, I hope that either encourages or scares people off from doing handovers and startups. Bit of a brief topic today.
Yes.
That's a change for us. Anyway.
And you didn't divert.
We
did. We talked about
conversation.
traffic. We talked about traffic and
Oh, that was at the
town
beginning.
size initially. So
Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you everyone out there for listening. Please feel free to send your topic requests or comments through to talkingpools@gmail.com and we will do our best to attack it. In the meantime, have a fantastic week. Look after yourselves. Stay warm if you're in my part of the world. It's bloody freezing today. And make lots of money. Uru.
see you guys.